The last parameter we have for rectangular connectors currently is the choice for complementary connectors. Now, complementary connectors is a very unique parameter which was designed specifically for connection types like slip and drive and slip. It is not used in connections like TDC, TDF, duckmate, and those where all four sides of the connection are identical. The reason why we're going to use slip and drive and slip in this tutorial is because complementary connections helps us to make sure that when we're attaching fittings in Practicad and rotating those fittings, that we can get the specific side of a connection we want in the right place. In other words, we need to decide with a slip and drive connection what side the drive is going on and what side the slip is going on. And there's a couple different philosophies on what is the right way to do this. There are two main philosophies that you get between contractors. One philosophy says that whenever we go to decide what side of a fitting gets the drive will always be on the depth. Another philosophy says whenever we decide what side of a fitting should get the drive is we always put the drive on the short side. Now, complementary connectors are designed to override specific portions of your specification tables, and we will get into this later when we get into the advanced specification section. For those that choose to have the depth of their fitting always carrying the drive, complementary connections can be used to make sure that when you get a slip and drive or drive and slip connection, that the drive side is always on the depth. If your philosophy is that the drive should always be on the short side of a fitting, we need to go into our advanced specifications and create settings there. And there will be separate tutorials on how to use advanced specifications. What we're going to do here is we're going to demonstrate how we can make a slip and drive connection complementary with the drive and slip connection and make sure that we always get the drive of a specific fitting to be on the depth of that fitting. Currently on the left, we've selected the slip and drive connector, and we're now going to go over the parameters we've chosen for it. First, we have the parameter for appearance. You'll notice that we've chosen the appearance slip and drive. And whenever we're actually representing an appearance, we're always reading the width first by the depth. So if it says appearance slip and drive, it means on the width of the fitting is the slip and on the depth of the fitting is the drive. And you can see that here that on the width of this fitting, we're moving over it with our cursor at the moment, you can see a preview of a slip. And on the depth of the fitting, you can see a preview of the drive. So it's width by depth, slip, and drive. The reverse of that, of course, would be a drive and slip. If you had chosen that appearance, on the width would be the drive, and on the depth would be the slip, as you can see here. This is the width, you can see a drive now, and on the depth, you can see a slip. So we're going to move it back to the slip and drive appearance for slip and drive. You can see that we've got compatible selected as itself, which is always natural for all connections. However, we want to point out something in this particular case. When we say compatible with slip and drive, we're talking about if we attach the width of one fitting to the width of another fitting, then we should use the default compatible connector. In this particular case, it means slip and drive should be slip and drive on both sides of the connector. However, if we were to take the second fitting we place in a drawing and rotate it at 90 degrees, now we'd actually be attaching the depth of that fitting to the width of the first fitting. In that particular case, we need the connectors on the second fitting to change. And that change is defined by whatever connector you've chosen in your complementary selection set. So what we're going to do here is say for slip and drive, we would like to make a complementary connector of drive and slip. Now currently in this tutorial it's already set to do so, but to show you how you would get it set to what you'd like, you'd come over here to the dialog box, you'd click on it, and then you'd answer the two questions in the complementary field. The first one is what connector should be complementary with slip and drive? In this particular case, we've said drive and slip. That means that if we were to take two pieces of duct and we were to rotate the second piece of duct at 90 degrees, that instead of using the compatible connector, it should switch and use the complementary connector. And this is going to be much more clear when we demonstrate this on the drawing shortly. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say that for slip and drive, the complementary connector will be drive and slip. Now one thing I want to point out, each connector can only be complementary with one other connector. You cannot have slip and drive complementary with two different connector types, only one. Therefore, if you switch and set a complementary connection for one connector, in this particular case, slip and drive is complementary with drive and slip, PractiCAD would automatically change and update the complementary connector for drive and slip to slip and drive. It just does the reverse. You don't have to change them both. You'll notice if we press OK, since we've set slip and drive to be complementary with drive and slip, once we press the OK button, if you click on drive and slip, you'll see complementary is now slip and drive. It does it automatic. You only have to change it once. So we're going to go back into slip and drive. We're going to go to complementary, go to our dialog box, and we're going to look at the next choice. The next choice is about orientation. Two choices here, width and depth. Essentially what we're doing is we're stating that for a particular connection, we want the drive on a specific side. For example, we say that if the connector is slip and drive, the orientation of the drive should be on the depth. If we had changed it to width, it would put the drive on the width. But for those that want to make it so that the depth of the fitting, which is usually the parameter we're looking at in front view, the depth of the fitting, is always going to carry the drive. We set it here, and now we press OK. You can see if we come over to drive and slip, and we go into complementary, drive and slip's complementary with slip and drive. But for the drive and slip connection, we're stating that the orientation of the drive should always be on the width of the fitting. And we're going to show you what classifies as width and depth of the fittings very shortly. But these parameters happen to be the most commonly used as well. So if you're trying to set your PractiCAD for slips and drives and slips, standing S's and standing drives, these are the most common choices here. Generally, the philosophy is always put the drive on the depth or always put the drive on the short side. And there's a separate tutorial on that under the advanced specification section. We're going to press OK. We're going to hit the save key. We're going to exit out of my library to put these two connectors in action. We're going to go into the fitting bin and we're going to grab a rectangular piece of duct. And you can see here that we've got it set for slip and drive and slip and drive. Now what we're going to do is place this fitting on the drawing. And we're going to double click on it and open up the AutoCAD property box. You can see the connectors here. Now what we're going to do is let go of this fitting. We're going to grab a rectangular elbow. Now we're going to hit C spacebar for continue. And let's go into the item box. Now take a look here. Currently, I haven't placed the rectangular elbow on the drawing yet. It's still waiting for me to attach it. But in order to attach the rectangular elbow to the rectangular duct on your drawing, it currently has the connector in slip and drive. That is slip and drive's compatible connector. Slip and drive was set to be compatible with itself. That will always be the choice when we're taking the width of one fitting and attaching it to the width of another fitting. And we always read in PractiCAD the width of elbows as the cheek parameter. So this parameter here is the width of the elbow. The throat parameter is the depth. So since we're attaching the width of the elbow to the width of the rectangular duct, and they're attached right here, we're using the compatible parameters. However, if we switch this elbow and rotate it at 90 degrees, we're now taking the throat or the depth of the elbow and we're attaching it to the width of the rectangular duct. In this particular case, PractiCAD does not use the compatible connector for the elbow. It uses the complementary connector for the elbow. And you can see here that it says drive and slip. Once again, it's always width by depth. So the drive is on the width of the elbow. And if you take a look, this is the cheek. The cheek is the width for elbows in PractiCAD. So the cheek is carrying, or the width is carrying, the drive. And it needs to, because the drive would be right here. We always want the drive on the depth in this particular tutorial. So what we've got is the ability to just rotate our fittings using complementary connectors. And if we're going width to width, it uses compatible. If we're going width of one fitting to the depth of another fitting, it uses complementary. So here you can see we're going to attach an elbow. Then we're going to take this elbow, we're going to rotate it, and then we're going to add one more piece of duct. And we're going to hit escape, and we're just going to look at the parameters of all these different fittings. Here we've got an elbow. You can see that PractiCAD, based on the parameters we've chosen, is choosing drive and slip. The drive is on the width, the slip is on the depth. The cheek is the width of this fitting because it's a rectangular elbow. And the cheek is carrying the drive. You can see right here, the drive's on the width of this fitting. It's right here where it should be because we said orientation, depth. And if you go to click on the rectangular duct, you can see that it's slip and drive. It's got the drive on the depth of the fitting. And that makes sense because we're attaching the width on one, where the drive is always carried on the width of the drive and slip. But for the slip and drive, we stated that the drive is always carried on the depth. So this way they make perfect complementary connectors. Setting these correctly will make it easy to just rotate your duct and attach it in PractiCAD, and make sure when you download the PractiCam, you get the drives and slips on the proper side.